Welcome to the Get Unhooked podcast with Jason Coombs, where experience meets insight. Jason Coombs, nationally recognized speaker, best-selling author, and founder of Brickhouse Recovery, shares hard-earned lessons on resilience, leadership, addiction, and mental health. No filters, no fluff, just real stories, practical wisdom, and a deeper look at what it takes to grow, lead, and keep moving forward. Now here's your host, Jason Coombs.
I want to spend a little time in chapter 6, the gift of desperation. The reason why I want to go here is in this chapter, this is the proverbial rock bottom. When I hit that bottom in terms of external bottoms, homeless, I was freezing in the winter, hungry. I was robbed at Screwdriver Point in a dark alley behind the homeless shelter. The physical pain, the emotional pain was unbearable. And this was one of the times that I remember asking myself, do I really want to change? This is important because this is the gift of desperation. And this is the natural consequence of allowing the natural consequence to impact our loved ones. It's often said that we change at the speed of pain. And so by allowing this essential ingredient, are the consequences of one's actions, to move through the heart and the mind to evoke this question, do I want to change? Like when using stops working, when getting loaded stops solving the problem, specifically quieting the voices in the mind, when it stops giving us relief. This gift of desperation comes on the heels of the pain. And so it's really important to remember to not deny your loved one their pain. Now, that can be difficult because there are a lot of circumstances where it's like, I need to consider this outcome or that outcome. And it's really easy to get caught in the weeds. But if you take the long game and you look past the immediate discomfort of setting and holding a boundary and allowing the consequences to follow, then if we mess with that, if we get in the middle of that and hijack that, what ends up happening is we delay the very gift of desperation that is what's needed. This gift of desperation it doesn't show up as relief, but as clarity. And I realized that continuing down this path would likely lead to death. I still remember having a dream, and I would really couch it in having a personal vision in the form of a dream where I could see my path fork in the road. And one path, it was like I could see all the way to the end, and at least the end that I was allowed to see. And I was in a gray cinder block cell in a prison, and I was an old man. And I just remember thinking just how ugly and hollow that was. And then my mind was able to see down this other path to the end. And I saw a green pasture. I saw the sun shining on the grass in the meadow, and there was a horse, and I was combing the horse. It's interesting if you remember in Unhooked and in a couple of chapters from this one, I talk about the horse at the treatment center that I was at, the ranch, and combing the horse. And so that was a full circle moment from making that decision. And what created that decision was this internal conflict that I had, the ambivalence, but also like this internal and brutal war where part of me wanted to change because I could see this potential destination where this other part of me clings to the drugs for survival and emotional escape. And that's just the symptom. It's really the shame of like, I can't overcome this. I want to die this way. And so the turning point, what's the turning point? Well, a simple, compassionate text from my mom. I'm making a roast. You're invited. I love you. It reminded me that I am still loved, that I am still worth saving. It came at the perfect time. So I do strongly recommend anytime you feel the nudge to send a text of love, don't second guess it and just send it, or a call or something where you can just share love. Because it wasn't what she said in that text, and she was probably not really feeling really loving at that point. She's probably like, I just am worried about Jason. I should maybe invite him over, or we got some leftovers. And she knew I loved roast. But it reminded me of much deeper worth. And so, I've heard it said that people don't change until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. This is the grit, not because it's pleasant, but because desperation finally breaks through the lies and the resistance to change. And that resistance builds throughout the addiction. And so, I think as you consider this in your own life, there's some key takeaways here. Number one is rock bottom isn't the end, and it's oftentimes the beginning. And I also heard it said rock bottom is when you put the shovel down, because it can always get deeper, always get harder. And a lot of us like to hold on to the rope and get dragged along the bottom for a while and hit every rock and boulder along the bottom. But this is where the gift desperation can be fostered and prepared, because it's not something you can force or control. But it does open the door to real change. Even if the desperation is received, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's going to jump into the preparation and action stage tomorrow. I do think it's important to also remember that addiction is both a mental and a spiritual warfare. I remember reading a book that described this spiritual warfare, and it perfectly made sense of my experience, where it was almost as if, and I believe that this was the case, that it was as if dark entities were around me all the time, where I got used to their companionship. And anytime I was loaded and ingesting these chemicals, they were like, really like jumping through and in, and just a part of me. And so it wasn't really only this mental disorder that I was dealing with. It was this spiritual warfare for my soul as well, because I did become a puppet, and I did things that I would never do. as a human being with a conscience. And I think it's really important to recognize that this feeling of being controlled by something darker, more than just cravings, is real. And so, because it's a spiritual warfare, your work is to prepare yourselves for maximum access to conscious contact and guidance and personal revelation, to know what to say and how to say it when the moment arrives. And this work that you're doing prepares you for that. The third thing is, remember that even the small acts of love matter. A simple, a kind message from my mom pierced through that darkness and reminded me of my worth. Fourth, change requires more than consequences. There's got to be hope. And that hope came through the form of a dream or a vision for me. Comes to people differently, but I do believe that there is an almighty, loving creator that is out, reaching out with divine, with tentacles of divine providence that are leading people to have these experiences like I had. I feel like that experience was an answer to a lot of prayers that my mom offered for a long time. So coupled with that hope, that change of that gift of desperation combined with hope really started to restore my self-efficacy. Oftentimes people in addiction want to change, they just don't believe that they can. And so it's building that belief in them is essential. It's not doing it for them, but it's reminding them that they have what it takes within them to do it. So a few questions of reflection. Have you ever had a gift of desperation moment? And what did it reveal to you? Did it bring comfort? Did it give you guidance? Did it open up a path for you? What was that wall that you hit? Doesn't have to be homelessness like where I was. It could be any form of that wall that you hit where it's like, I got to do something different. And what pain did you feel there? Also reflect on what your relationship with pain is right now. Are you trying to numb it, avoid it, or are you trying to learn from it? Are you trying to feel it and surrender it? When was the last time that someone's small act of kindness changed your direction, even if it was slightly? And I want you to think about who needs to hear from you right now. Not just your addicted loved one, but who needs to hear from you today? A little word of appreciation or a little symbol of love that you're thinking about them. What part of you still feels hopeless or stuck? If you think about your life domains, in what area do you feel like you're stuck? And maybe you aren't feeling like you can move forward, or you're just going to always be this way. And then identify one thing you can do to move toward hope, move toward an action, an entry point. If it's health related, maybe it's taking a 5-minute walk. Just something small, little entry points. Another question to reflect on is, do you believe you can change? I've also heard it said that what we choose not to change, we choose. So the things that we choose not to change about ourselves, we are actually choosing. And so, do you believe you can change? If not, why not? Why not? And what might help you begin to believe that you can? So be thinking of the gift of desperation through those lenses and recognize that your role does matter. Your scope is specific. Your ability to force or control the gift of desperation is futile. It's more of allowing the process to play, putting faith in it that your loved one is going to be okay, and that if you take the long game and you think about the gift of desperation as an essential ingredient that comes from the natural consequences and well, what can you do to allow that to run its course and not delay it or hijack it or control it? Because as we're building up to, these are the elements that prepare the heart and the mind for the gift of volition, where motivation to make change is present. And so there are things you can do, as I mentioned. So that's the gift of desperation. I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sharing these episodes so that they can help others. This is one way that you can give back and pay it forward, is by just passing along this free information to others that are possibly in need. Share it on social media, share it with your loved ones and family members. And don't forget, you can access my book on Audible, as well as on Amazon or on my website, as well as you can find information about our services at Brickhouse Recovery at brickhouserecovery.com.